You're listening to The Upland Rookie, a podcast presented by Final Rise, Onyx Hunt, Nastra, Gunner Kennels, and Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. And you're listening to episode 96 with Erik Petersen. Nastra, National Shoot to Retrieve Association, one of the best organizations that I have been a part of for the last several years. I highly encourage you, check out Nastra and think about becoming a member today. They have so much going for them in the aspects of regional or local trials, and a great community of people who are willing to help and support and encourage new dog handlers and then get them enfolded into the sport of upland hunting, dog training, and all that goes with it. Final Rise gear. Guys, this is the best, hands down, upland hunting vest on the market today. It was just awarded the 2023 Upland Hunting Vest of the Year, which is huge. Check out finalrise.com. Check out all their products and much more. If you are not an Onyx Elite member already, I would highly recommend hit pause right now on the episode. Go sign up for an Onyx Elite membership right now. Use promo code ROOKIE20. Save 20% off your membership at Onyx Hunt, the number one digital mapping software in the world. It is going to open up hundreds of thousands of acres of publicly accessible land for any bird hunter. So go check out onyxhunt.com now. Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. You guys know I love Inukshuk. My dogs have been rocking it for several years now and have been performing at their best than they have on any other food brand out there. Inukshuk is a great family-owned company supporting the upland and bird hunting community, which I absolutely love. Inukshuk Professional Dog Food is a highly dense formula that gives bird dogs exactly what they need to perform in the field on long hunts, over the summer training, fall hunts, whatever it might be. Inukshuk has really put the time and effort into crafting a formula that's going to fit your dog and your needs. They have marine, they have the high 32-32, they have 30-25, they have 26-16, you name it, they got you covered. So check out inukshukpro.com. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Upland Rookie Podcast. I'm your host, Will Larson, and I am glad to be back with you for another episode. Hope everyone's doing well out there. We are about a month into the 2023-2024 Upland bird season, and I've been seeing a lot of people tagging the Upland Rookie Podcast on the social media, which is awesome. I love seeing what you are experiencing out in the prairies or mountains. Some of you have been chasing some mountain grouse. Some of you have been out on the Chucker Hills. It's awesome. I love seeing it. I love hearing, what you're excited about and what you're learning out there. That's one of the things when we started this podcast many months ago, about 3 years ago now. One of the things that I just love that we're all learning something. We're all at some stage in the journey, whether we're a year in or whether we're 10 years in. We're still learning. We're still growing as dog handlers and bird hunters and outdoorsmen and women. And that's what I love seeing. I love seeing us all grow along our journey. And so I love seeing those aspects. Hope everyone's having a good year. One of the things I haven't talked about in a while is maybe capturing some of your moments, whether that be pictures or whether that be through journaling or writing some things down. Like, what was that hunt like? What were some moments that just stood out to you that you're going to want to remember years and maybe decades from now? Again, pictures for me are a big thing. I take tons of pictures, whether it's training or hunting, before a hunt, during a hunt. Take a picture of the hotel, like different things, aspects along a hunt for me with my dogs and good friends. I want to remember those aspects. And so, what is it for you? What is it for you this year that you're going to take a little time, put a little effort into capturing those moments, whether that be, again, journaling, photos, video, whatever it might be. I think it's an important part. As upland bird hunters, we get to see some beautiful country, and we get to have some experiences that not a lot of people will ever get to have. We get to see some of this country, sunrises, sunsets, beautiful animals, just God's creation in general. And so, my encouragement would be, it is early October. The season's still just getting started for a lot of us. So, how are you going to intentionally invest in this season and capturing some of those moments, some of those memories that you want to hold on to for a lifetime? So, that'd be my encouragement. But on today's conversation, I'm really excited. I sat down with Erik Petersen. Erik Petersen, he started, well, we'll get into his story, but he does a lot of awesome video work, some photography. And so our conversation, guys, I just have to say, is one of my favorite conversations I've had on the podcast. I don't say that lightly. I enjoy each and every guest that I have on the show. I learned something myself. Erik, though, is just something special about this conversation. We talk about really the storytelling behind a video that he'll produce, or kind of the writing process and what you want to capture and how you capture it. It was a really fascinating conversation. We also kind of take a turn in the conversation and talk a little bit about, what it is, being passionate outdoor enthusiasts, people who love bird dogs, hunting, big game, small game, birds, whatever it might be. But then how does that collide with family and kids and raising kids in the outdoors, and having those experiences with your kids, and how do you balance it? How do you balance it with work and all those things as well? And so really, really rich conversation I had with Erik. I'm actually going to break this one up into two parts. Got a little bit lengthy, and I think it's just a lot of good content there that I hope you guys enjoy as much as I did. So I will be sure to drop part 2 of our conversation in just a couple days. So make sure you guys listen to both. And other than that, we're going to dive right into my conversation with Erik Petersen. Well, Erik, thanks for jumping on the podcast here, man. And I've been wanting to get you on here for a little while, and so I'm glad we could finally make it happen. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks. My pleasure to
Yeah,
be
man.
here.
Absolutely.
Excited to chat with
For sure. Erik, why don't you kick us off and put us on a map? Where are you talking to us from? And maybe give the listeners an overview of who is Erik Petersen.
Sure. I am talking with you from Livingston, Montana, which is about 30 miles east of Bozeman. For those of you who don't know where Livingston is, but have heard of Bozeman, Southwest Montana. I've been here for about 23 years, called Montana home. And I suspect I will die here because I haven't found a better place to live. I am a dad to 2 teenage boys and 2 4.5-year-old twins, a stepdad to 2 4.5-year-old twins. So I kind of cover the spectrum of toddlers and teenagers right now, which is a bit of a wild ride, but also super
Man,
fun.
that's intense. You got
And
both ends there. The teenage,
yeah,
twin life. Oh,
it's pretty wild. And it turns out there's not that much difference between teenagers and twins. They generally talk about, the same type of topics. You have the same kind of tantrums. So you use similar parenting techniques on
oh, I'm
both.
sure. I'm sure. I got twins as well. They're almost 4.
Really? Oh,
Boy and
wow.
girl twins, and
Wow.
they're fun. I mean, they're awesome. But yeah, I can relate, at least on that front. My oldest is 11, so we're not quite into that
Okay.
teenage life yet, but that's
Yeah, you're getting there.
yeah, we're getting close. Getting close.
Yeah.
That's fun. And sorry, how old were your twins?
Four and a
Okay, so
half.
yeah, they're close.
Very
They're
fun age.
close, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, very cool, man. And I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but you are a Minnesota Wilds fan, right?
I am. I grew up in Minnesota. And yep, Twins, Wild, Vikings fan, by nature of not having a professional sports team to cheer for here in Montana. I
Yeah.
just defer back to the homeland. Yeah, I've lived here, like I said, 23 years. I grew up in central Minnesota, the son of a extremely avid hunter. My dad still is a big time big game
Right
hunter.
on.
Lives for that and turkey.
Oh,
So
nice. Got the turkey
so
addiction.
oh yeah, hard. Yeah,
That's awesome. Hey, did you? I
yeah.
know when we were talking a couple weeks ago, did you just go on a big game hunt recently somewhere, or were you?
I was I'm supposed to be leaving on Sunday in a few days, but we just got word yesterday actually that the hunt is canceled because there's some fires up north of the Brooks Range that's
Oh, no
got
way.
airline travel snarled all up. People are out in the bush trying to get back.
Oh,
People are
shoot.
in Kotzebue trying to get out to the bush, and so I think between fire and just the schedule getting behind, that part, that Kotzebue area is huge for caribou this time of
Okay.
year, and there's just a ton of traffic, and I think they just got behind, and they just don't have the airline power to move people around right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where that stands. I'm really bummed because I have all my equipment,
Oh,
all my camera gear packed,
oh
all my
shoot.
gear packed up, and we're ready to leave. So I'm hoping that one will get rescheduled.
Yeah.
That was going to be a father-daughter caribou hunt film that I was going to shoot.
Oh, no
So
way.
it would be a really cool story. I'm
Oh,
hoping it still
absolutely.
comes together.
Oh, yeah. That. Yeah. Hopefully, man, that can get rescheduled. I was going to ask if it was a personal hunt for you or just some video work you were doing.
Yeah, video work. Although I did have a tag, and
Oh,
I've filmed a fair amount in Alaska, and the one species that I've always wanted to chase is caribou. I just kind of mesmerized by
yeah.
that and would love to see that migration and hear that migration. So I'm hoping it'll come
Yeah.
together.
That'd be pretty special. Well, hopefully, you guys can
Yeah,
get it figured out.
yeah.
Are you still pretty big into up or obviously bird hunting and big game still? Are you pretty kind of dabble in both those worlds?
I, for the most part, just upland hunt these days. I bow hunted a lot. I big game hunted a lot when I was younger. Um, and just in the last few years, I've pretty much switched over to just upland. A combination of my kids getting old enough to big game hunt now, so my focus is on trying to get them out and get them on game, and getting two bird dogs instead of one, and it just makes it that much harder to leave dogs behind to go chase deer, elk, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I still get out big game hunting, but it's generally with the focus of getting my
Yeah.
kids out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, such a true point. That once you add the dogs in there, especially, it's hard to go do other hobbies when you're got the dogs at home and you
yeah,
put time into training them and working them. So that's a hard dynamic.
yeah, and it was hard to leave my one dog home when I went, bow hunting for elk for a week or whatever, and then you add a second, and it's just like, well, what's the point of having dogs if I'm not going to be out running them on the weekends or on my days off? So yeah,
Absolutely.
something had to
Yeah,
give.
absolutely, man. Well, Eric, why don't you back up a little bit in your story of hunting and all that? Take us back of where did this? I have a pretty good idea, and you mentioned your dad already, but
Yeah,
take us
yeah.
back a little bit of where did this passion develop for you? The outdoors, hunting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was really my parents. They're both avid outdoors people. We grew up hunting, camping, fishing. If we had days off, we were at a cabin or camping or hunting or whatever. I've got three brothers, and we were all four boys, and my dad. We're pretty avid. We started out like any good Midwesterner. We started out deer hunting, and that grew into bear hunting to extend the season, and then that grew into muzzleloader deer hunting to extend the season a bit more. And my dad always had a black lab when we were kids. He was not much of a bird hunter. He like I said, he was avid big game, but would still do some waterfowl hunting, and a little bit of grouse hunting. So we always had a dog around. And then when I was in when I was in high school, I started working for a dog trainer, helping him train in the summers, and I did that for 4 years. And that's where I ended up with my first dog. I got a black lab out of one of his litters, and that kind of set me off on this path, um, of just chasing birds. It was always a struggle to get my dad's attention away from deer long enough to get him to take me grouse hunting or duck hunting or whatever. Uh, but as I got older and more independent, I turned my attention to waterfowl and upland game. And then I graduated college in Minnesota, and the day of my graduation, I skipped walking for graduation and had my truck loaded and moved out to Montana the day I graduated college, because I had been coming out here and working construction in the summers and through college, so I knew where I wanted to
Sure.
be. So I made that transition pretty quickly, and moved out here with that same black lab that I started out with. Had her for a year or two while I lived in Montana before she died, and then pretty quickly after moving here, realized for this kind of country, the pointing dog is really the way to go. So then I got a short hair, and that kind of set me off and running into the
a whole
dogs. And
nother rabbit hole,
yeah,
right? It just
yeah,
it takes
yeah.
you in and sucks you in.
It does, and I'm still in that rabbit hole pretty deep, and haven't found my way back out. So
I don't
it's
think there
just
is an
fun.
end to it. It's just continuous
No,
tunnels and new dog over here, another new bird to chase over here.
exactly. New species, new state, yeah, all of
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah,
so fun, man. With
yeah,
is your dad still just avid big game hunter
yeah,
still?
yeah. He's yeah. I just talked to him this morning, and he was making plans. He's got in September he leaves Minnesota. He's spending a week in North Dakota to deer hunt there, and then having his nephew pick him up from North Dakota to drive to Montana to do an elk
Oh,
hunt
right
right up
on.
immediately after that.
He's
He'll be
committed.
here for 2 weeks. So he's got a 3 week block there where he's going to be elk and deer and bear hunting.
That's
So
awesome.
he's retired and living the
Oh,
dream.
that's something that gives us, I don't know, some all hope to look forward to for the
Yeah,
retirement age when
absolutely.
you don't have little kids at home and you're able to
Yep,
go chase whatever big game, small game, whatever it is. Well, that's
yep,
exciting.
yeah.
What is it? What is it for you, Eric? Thinking about kind of your journey and going from, and you started working in for a dog trainer when you were younger, and kind of sounds like it kind of just snowballed from there. The love for dogs and upland hunting and all that. I guess what is it for you that kind of keeps you coming back? What is it special about upland hunting, bird dogs, waterfowl that gets you excited still?
Um, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's the dogs and watching them work and having that companion in the field that you have such a tight relationship with, and then getting to see them do the thing that they're on this planet for, right? That's a big part of it. Also, now at this stage, it's my kids. Like I love getting them out. I love watching them experience the thing I love. And watching that light bulb come on when things start to click for them. That's been the most fun of the last few years as they have gotten their hunter safety done and started hunting. And wing shooting is such a challenging thing even for adults, for me
Sure.
still. It's such a big learning curve, and it's fun to watch that transition of them barely being able to get the gun shouldered because they're little and the guns are big, and then starting to figure the progression out and the swing and
It's a lot
all the
to
things
take
that
in. Yeah.
it is. It's a ton to put together to end with a successful connecting on a bird. So that's now what gets me out the door for the most part is just watching my kids do
Yeah.
it and enjoy it and spending time outside with them and teaching them some of the things that my dad taught me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you said your two oldest, your teenagers, two boys. You said
Yeah, two
okay.
boys.
Are,
They're now 13 and 15, soon to be 14 and
Okay.
15.
Okay. Right
So
on. And
yeah, so they've been
are you kind of seeing their natural, are they gravitating towards big game more, turkeys, upland? Like where are they kind of, they just want to try it all?
there's my youngest is still just upland hunting. He loves the dogs. He loves the dogs are his buddies, so he loves being in the field with them. And I think there's a little bit of fear of the big loud
Oh, okay.
rifles, for big game.
Sure.
My oldest has gotten really into deer hunting. He's gotten a few deer now, and that success breeds interest, and interest breeds success. So, uh, as that snowball is kept rolling, he gets more and more into it. So that's fun, just having him come to me and be like, I really want to deer hunt on opener. I really want to try and get a whatever. That's fun to experience where it's not me pushing
Sure.
them. Because in the beginning, there's some level of like, if they're going to do it, it has to come from the
You got to
parent on
drive it a
some
little
level,
bit.
right? Yeah. And you got to kind of walk that line between making it fun, making it their own, and still kind of pushing it
Sure.
along. So, um, there was a lot of donuts, a lot of road treats in the early years to keep
Oh
them
yes.
interested in
Oh
going.
yeah.
And now that's kind of transitioned into, like I said, like they're starting the conversation, and they're the ones asking to
Yeah.
go. So that's rewarding for
That's
sure.
that's cool, man. Yeah, it's kind of that. Yeah, the nudges you have to make in the beginning, or
Yeah,
bribery, whatever we want to call it, kind of pays off in the
yeah,
end. Once, like you said, once they're asking, once they're kind of pushing that conversation, that's when it becomes fun.
yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
yeah. Now they're old enough that they can carry the gun all day themselves, and they
sure.
can keep up with me. And it's a different type of reward as they get older and start owning it a bit more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk about your
Yeah.
dogs a little bit. So, I know you said you picked up a short hair after your lab. One, what led you to a short hair, and talk a little bit more about your two dogs now.
Um, yeah, I went from a lab to short hair. Like I said, just it was pretty obvious that to cover the country, this big open country in Montana, that a bigger ranging dog was necessary. Um, I guess I just love watching the short hairs run. I like the style. I like the way they move. I like watching them eat up the miles in the field. I don't know what ultimately brought me to a short hair the first go round. A buddy of mine had a wire hair. Uh, I think I just liked the looks of the short hair and knew I wanted a big
Sure.
running dog. So I got that.
Yeah,
Turns
big
out
running short hair.
they run big. Yeah. So that was Cash, my second dog, and um, he died when he was only 8 years old, which was far earlier than I
Mm,
expected. And then I got a poodle pointer next out of a breeder in Minnesota. Um, really, just because a friend of mine had a couple friends had poodle pointers. It was almost like a mashup of a lab and a pointing
mm,
dog. Like he ranges bigger, but he also moves slower, works the cover
sure,
slower, retrieves. Some of those things that you don't always get in other pointing dog
sure.
breeds. And that breed has been fun. I've really enjoyed the poodle pointer. Um, and I primarily hunt pheasants here in Montana, so that seems like a good breed for that because, like I said, he moves a little slower, he works a little
Yeah.
closer. And so that's Gus. He's 7 now. And then I've got another short hair that I got 3 years ago, a 3-year-old named Zeke.
Okay.
So I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old
Okay.
now.
Right on. It's good. It's good age spacing too for bird dogs. Have them
Yeah.
spread
Yeah.
out a little bit.
Yep.
You don't have two puppies to worry about. And
Yeah. Yeah. And this is really the first situation where I had an older dog to kind of teach the younger
sure.
dog both good and bad habits, which was it was an interesting, it helped a lot. I thought the
Yeah.
training. It worked well from my perspective. I'd never done that
Yeah.
before, but
That's good, man.
uh,
Did
there's some bad habits they pick up
oh
too.
yeah,
But
definitely.
it seems like the learning curve is quicker when you have an older dog to show some of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
tricks.
And also too, I think even experience. I've noticed for myself, experience for myself as a handler, and training my dogs. I'm like, my first dog Gage, I kind of apologize to him sometimes and say, sorry, man, you were my guinea pig. Like, I,
Yeah,
all my
yeah,
not knowing things and inexperience was kind of shows through him sometimes. But there's also something about your first bird dog too. You're like, oh, you're the best dog ever. you know.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's first bird dog is the
Yep.
best bird dog
Once in a
ever. It's
lifetime
hard to
dog.
replace that. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and you learn so much yourself in that
yeah.
process um, of training that first dog and hunting that first dog. And yeah, I don't think that can ever be replicated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. With your dogs, are you primarily training them yourself? So are you using a pro? Are you kind of recalling some of what you learned, working for that dog trainer back in college, or
Yeah, yeah. I've trained my dogs myself. I'm using air quotes for trained, uh, because there's obviously varying levels of trained. My dogs are great. They're not steady to wing and shot. I've never found that to be. Uh, I've never worried about
sure?
that. I think it'd be really cool. It's just not been a priority of
Yeah,
mine. So I get my dogs to the level of where I need them. or want them, and kind of call it good for that. But yeah, I learned a lot. The dogs that I trained when I worked for that trainer were all labs. So obviously there's some differences when training a pointing dog, but the basics are all the same. And just how to interact with the dog and get them to do what you want is all the same. It's just kind of fine tuning some of the pointing dog stuff that you want to add in. And for that, I've always leaned pretty heavily on Ben Williams's techniques, which is just get young dogs on wild birds as much as possible, and they learn the game themselves pretty quickly. I'll introduce them to pigeons and use pigeons early on when they're puppies for the first year or two. But after that, for me at least, my dogs have always figured out that game pretty quickly.
That's awesome.
Once they hit the second year, it's like, oh, I know this game. It's a pigeon trapped under, whatever.
They're pretty smart animals.
Yeah, they are. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a place where there's a lot of wild birds, and I can go run my dogs whatever time of year it is. I can find some wild birds to get them on and just keep that, keep them honed, basically.
Sure. That's awesome, man.
So really the only training I do in the summer is trail running with my dogs to keep them and me sane and physically healthy.
Yeah, ready to hit the ground running in September.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. What was last season like for you? Your dogs, your hunting season? Maybe what were some standout moments for you from last year?
Yeah, a lot of my seasons the last few years have mostly been focused around my kids, and filming. So last year we did just some local pheasant hunts with the kids, and then we were shooting 3 different episodes for Matt Davis with Final Rise. So that took us to northeast Montana for sharptails and to Arizona for quail, and then we did one here in Montana for pheasant. So those are fun because I get to travel and see new country and meet new people and chase new birds, and that's always a highlight to be able to do that. Probably two things stand out from last season, I guess, as highlights. One, I wasn't carrying a gun; I was carrying a camera, but I got to spend the day with Ben Williams, who I mentioned earlier, who is just a legend of the Upland community, and got to go out with him and his dogs and spend the day in the field. So that was really neat.
That's not just a season highlight. That could be a highlight for any upland bird hunter, I can imagine. Spend a day with Ben, and wow.
Yeah, it was pretty magical. I was shooting a story for Pheasants Forever magazine, so Tom Carpenter, the journal editor at Pheasants Forever, is a friend of Ben's, and he asked me if I'd photograph the story that he was writing for them. So, and Ben lives just outside of Livingston here, so he's a local guy who I'd never actually spent time with. I've read his books and read his articles and known about him and seen him around town, but it was cool to be able to connect with him and just it would be like an amateur basketball player getting to spend the day with Michael Jordan.
That's incredible. And that story just came out not too long ago, right? A couple weeks ago. Pheasants Forever put
out. Yeah. They just released that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a highlight. And then the other one would be opening day of pheasant season here in Montana. I took my 2 boys out, and my oldest shot the first 2 pheasants that were put up.
Nice.
So just watching him connect on both of those 2 shots in a row and 2 birds was, I don't know, I always say it's magical to me when you put in so much time trying to teach a kid all these steps and trying to put all these steps together and practicing and missing and missing and missing and missing and missing and missing. And then it one day things just click, and it's like the light bulb pops on and all things come together and the bird drops out of the air, and it's like
everyone's like, what just happened?
What happened? So that was really cool, just opening day, and he was able to get 2 birds in his first 2 shots.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. That would definitely be a one for the memory bank for sure right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. What What gets you excited thinking about this season ahead right now? What's kind of on your radar? Any big new species you're chasing? Any big trips you got planned or thinking about?
I mean, I had, yeah, like that, like I said, that Alaska hunt, I was pretty excited to go up there,
So,
which has
sorry to
nothing
bring
to
up a
do
sore
with,
subject again.
right. But I don't have any big trips planned this fall. I'm hoping to just get some local hunts in here in Montana with the kids. And we have a boys' weekend where I take the boys up to northern Montana and stay at a friend's place every year, which is always a magical 4 days of just hanging out with the kids and
Yeah,
hunting. That's always a highlight of the year. So I don't have any like big bucket list
sure. Just some
hunts this
normal
fall.
local fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My kids are at the age now where they're into fall sports. One's playing football, one's playing
Yeah,
soccer. So it's just that time in my life where hunting has to take a little bit of a
sure.
backseat to family duties. That's just the
Yeah,
reality of life. I think I'm in that chapter. So, um, and I travel a fair amount for work. Well, I call it work. Most people would not agree with that, but I travel a fair amount, so it's hard to,
sure.
be gone for work and then be gone for pleasure too. So
Absolutely.
I kind of have to walk that line, as I'm sure most people understand most people who have kids
Yeah,
understand that.
absolutely. That's a great point, man. Kind of going down this rabbit hole. I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day about this kind of topic of it's just that struggle. Like I'm kind of in a similar boat with you. Again, my kids aren't
Hmm.
that old, but we got six kids. We got a bunch in soccer, two boys in hockey, twins, a baby. So we got all the things kid wise, and it's that point
Yeah,
of it's a balance of you know
yeah,
again, I don't want to say kids versus family versus hunting, but it becomes a natural
right,
point where it's like you're always going to choose your kids, your family every day, all day. But then there's
yeah,
that at least I feel sometimes a guilty thing inside of me of going, oh, I haven't ran my dogs as much, or I don't have as many hunts planned,
yeah,
and there's just that. It's a hard reality. I don't think we talk about maybe enough, maybe, but because we see on
yeah,
Instagram and Facebook of all these people who live and breathe hunting and all this stuff, which is great and it's awesome, but
yeah,
it's a hard dynamic, and I think I fall into that, feeling guilty sometimes of not running the
yeah,
dogs as much or not going on big hunts. But I think it's a
yeah. Or just that fear of missing out,
yeah,
like you said, you see other people on social media doing these epic trips, and you think, man, life is too short to not do those things. But yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. I think as my kids get older and as I get closer to that day when they're no longer at home, it's easier for me to kind of take a half step back from hunting,
sure,
knowing that, seeing that writing on the wall, and knowing that in four
yeah,
years I'm going to have all the time in the world for
sure,
myself. So right now I got to invest in
totally.
them
Because that time's short
while they're
too.
here.
Like
Yeah,
that time's super short, and it's going to come where, like you said, they're going to be out of the house and moving on, and you will have that free time
yeah,
to you know
yeah,
yeah for
yeah. So it's not as exciting as you
yeah
might
not as glamorous.
as you might like my checklist for the fall, but I've just kind of come to accept that that's the chapter of life that I'm in right
Yeah,
now, and I love spending time with my kids, whether it's watching them play soccer and football or watching them shoot pheasants out of the
yeah,
sky. That's kind of
yeah,
my,
and you can kind of have both worlds. Like it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
all kid sports and doesn't have to be all hunting. There's a
yeah,
healthy balance that we can figure out. Okay, Mike.
yeah. And honestly, it's taken me about 40 years to figure that out. That there is a healthy balance, and in order for everybody to be
Yeah,
happy and healthy, there needs to be some of that balance,
totally. Yeah, that's so important, man.
at least in my world.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny, and I have no data to back this up. No data, so people might be mad at this. But over my whatever 5-6 years of being in the upland world and all that, most of the people I meet, most not all, most people I meet who are like die hard bird hunters, every
Yeah,
weekend, big trips, blah blah blah, either don't have kids or their kids are gone out of the house,
yeah,
and so I make a mental note sometimes when I look at someone going, oh, I wish I could hunt as much as they did.
yeah,
If you look beneath the surface a little bit, it's either they don't have kids or their kids are older or they're older. So
yeah,
that encourages me a little bit.
yeah, yeah. It's not a level playing field, and it helps to keep that in mind for
Yeah.
sure. I think to know that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the reason you had kids is to spend time with them. The last thing you want to do is dart out of the house every moment you
Sure.
get to, and miss out on some of the most important
Yeah,
things.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Eric, let's we kind of turn the corner a little bit into some of the video work, some of the creative work that you've done. Would love to kind of talk through that a little bit more. But can you talk through a little bit? I guess let's go back to the beginning. I guess like what led you down the path of some of your creative video work, photography, things like that.
Yeah, I went to college for journalism essentially. So I started my career in newspapers. I was a newspaper photojournalist for about 15 years, working in newspapers in the West here. And then I went back to grad. Well, I was offered a position as an adjunct professor at University of Montana, and so I taught in the journalism department for a year, and then was offered the chance to get a master's degree and continue
Mm.
teaching. So I went back and got my master's in environmental science, which is essentially communicating complicated scientific information to the
Oh wow.
masses. I sort of put my own twist on that and ended up doing a short film. I had been like I said, a still photographer for my career thus far, in newspapers and magazines. And then I met this amazing character while I was in grad school, and I did a magazine story about him. He was an 89-year-old ultra
Mm.
runner, so he was a old timer that didn't pick up running until he had retired from the Forest
Oh wow.
Service, uh, and then just started running to stay in shape because he wasn't out in the woods every day like he used to be. So it's just a really fascinating character. He cut his own firewood by hand with a crosscut saw and did things the hard way to stay in
Yeah.
shape and stay active and vital. And that film, that was my first film that I did, and that ended up playing at the Banff Mountain Film Festival and a bunch of festivals all over the world. And it opened up this
Wow.
whole other arena
And
of this whole other
that was your
platform.
very first video piece you've done?
That was
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of a crazy it was a crazy launching pad. I think the success of that film was largely based on the lovability of that
Hmm.
character, um, and he just had a great story, and um, so it kind of took off, and played it all over the world. I mean, it was playing film festivals in
Oh
China,
wow.
which blew my mind because I was new to the game and didn't really know what I was doing, but anyway, I had an amazing experience with that film and traveling to film festivals and thought this is a really cool way to tell stories that I didn't have any experience in, but that I found really rewarding. So I kind of um, switched modes a
Hmm.
bit and started doing more and more video. And still, early on, it was largely in the outdoor adventure world. So it was like, yeah, trail running and backcountry skiing and that kind of stuff. And then eventually, my passion for hunting and the outdoors and that love of telling stories through film kind of came together, or I forced them together, and started doing more work in the hunting world. I didn't start out in the uplands. I was doing more Alaska hunts and that kind of stuff, but then kind of eventually got narrowed down the funnel to more and more of like bringing my passions of storytelling and upland hunting
Hmm.
together, and that kind of culminated in what became Tailgate Tales, which was a series that my business partner Jasper and I just kind of came up with this concept. We just wanted to see if we could pull it off, really, tell like cool stories in the upland world with really high quality cinematic storytelling. So that was 2 years ago. We filmed 5 episodes of Tailgate Tales, and the model was we chose 5 different artists who also were upland hunters, and kind of told the stories, kind of the crossover between art and
Hmm.
upland hunting, because there's a lot of crossover, there's a lot of similarities there, and it was really cool to talk to people who were artistic and hear their take on the upland world.
Sure.
So, we had a tattoo artist, we had a famous poet and writer, we had a wildlife painter, a musician, and then Matt from Final Rise, who sews these vests. Sure. And those were the five. And we went hunting and we talked about that confluence of art and hunting. Yeah. That was all kind of spec work. Like I said, we just dreamed up this concept and said, let's give it a try. We got Federal Ammo and Gunner Kennels and Final Rise to be the sponsors for that, so we could at least pay the bills and keep the lights on while we were doing this thing. We were sort of testing, seeing if it would float. And it did, and it was well received. And after the end of that, Matt from Final Rise approached us and said, hey, I love what you guys did with this. I want to continue this under my banner and just, do it under the Final Rise brand. Yeah. So last year we kind of pivoted on the concept. It was no longer artists and it was no longer me as a host, which I was happy with because that's
was that not your sweet spot?
No, I'd much rather be behind the camera than in front of it. But we ended up shooting those 3 short films for Matt last fall, which 2 of them have been released so far, and the 3rd will come out, I think, next week. So,
dude, right on.
So that's kind of the progression of still photographer for newspapers and magazines to
developed.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a lot of questions in my head right now. Okay. I'm going to back way up. What is the film that the very first one you did that kind of went crazy? What's that called? Can people look it up on YouTube or something?
Yeah. It's on. It's actually on PBS too, so it's easy to find. It's called The Hard Way.
The Hard Way.
Okay. Yeah.
That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, because I know I'm going to have people message me if I didn't get this in there.
Yeah.
What's that film called?
Yeah.
Oh man, I have so many questions for you, Eric. You unpacked so much. It's just so good. Okay, so clarifying question. So are you still doing Tailgate Tales, or is that kind of gone and now it's kind of the films under the Final Rise umbrella? All right, that is a wrap of part 1 of my conversation with Erik Petersen. Be sure to tune in to part 2. I'll be dropping in just a couple days. We're going to finish out the rest of our conversation. Again, this one got a little bit long, and again, really a rich conversation that I wanted to be able to break up into 2 parts, let you digest it a little bit easier, because I think there's a lot of good content here. So, Erik, thank you so much. Everyone, be sure to tune in to, it's going to be episode 97, basically, in a few days. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast and go rate and review. Leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it might be. Love seeing the reviews of the podcast and what the show means to you. So head on over there, leave a rating and review. Until next time, go put some miles on those boots and follow your favorite bird dog. Take care.